Today, we are going to talk about salt. More importantly, the effects of salt, right? And its use in excessive quantities, right? As evidence, physicians have overlooked the greatest factor of disease. As evidence, physicians have prepared all kinds of serums to overcome cell autonomy by untenable short route. And all these routes have yet to help those who are affected by chronic disease to the continuous use of excessive salt, which produces cell pitosis, right? What is the daily amount of salt that is required? Everybody who eats more than 15 to 30 grams daily, right? That is an excessive amount. Anything beyond that, right? And there is a reason as to why the salt is very important and why you need to keep your salt to a minimum, right? So let's say they did 100 people eat excessively of salt, right? We would get about 75% different effects. Some will say they have stiff joints, some will say they have eczema, some will say they have psoriasis, some will say they have backache, some might say they have acidosis, indigestion, dry skin, nervous irritation, perverted circulation, which develops local inflammation and growths, right? So a lot of these things break down as to why excessive salt is bad for the human system, right? Now, let's understand the formula of salt. NaCl, the molecular weight of 5837. Chloride of sodium, or common table salt, is a true chemical compound of chlorine and sodium. Every 100 parts of the pure salt invariably contain 39.6 parts of each sodium and 60.4 parts of chlorine gas. So 39.6 parts of sodium, guys, 396, very important right there, right? Its active properties are alternative, emetic, cathartic, antiseptic, preservative, tonic, stimulant, vermifuge, refrigerant, astringent, irritant, and water adds aphrodisiac. So, salt in essence, right? When we think of salt and how it can affect the system, right? Its lifelong use develops the following conditions, which, for example, over time, excessive use of salt leads to hyperthesia of the nerves, destruction of the capillaries, perverted metabolism, catatonic sallow complexion, exudation, fatigue, local appetite affection, nerve impingement, and so on and so forth, right? Now, there's a reason for this because salt is very, very important, right? Now, when we used to use salt to take care of our food, right? Back in the day, used salt to preserve meats and preserve any types of things that would go bad. In essence, what the salt was doing is it was preventing any buildup of bacteria, right? But in the human body, when we consume excess amounts and it is slowly breaking down particles and specific elements that are crucial to our bodily functions, right? This is why when children at a young age are consuming large amounts of salts, they develop eczema because the skin becomes inflamed and it gets itchy. Now, the importance of this is to understand that us as a human vessel must understand that the more salt we consume, it will, in essence, break down more in our body because we are not meant to consume that much salt. Salt, in essence, is an irritant, right? Therefore, you have to be modest with it, right? Yes, it might taste good, but it is an irritant in the body because we are elemental in essence, right? So, for the reason that chloride of sodium is one of the cell salts which participates in all physiological functions and the seasoned nourishment, it has always been without limit and considered harmless. The amount of the different cell salts vary slightly, which may be observed when the deficiencies of the blood occur by the small amount required to restore its equilibrium. Whenever there is an excess of one cell salt, The supplying of the others did not always produce a normal ratio of the blood, right? So this is why when you take in more salt, the blood is not able to flow immensely the way it can. Now, here's a way to by do something naturally to increase blood flow. Eating watermelon. Watermelon increases blood flow by a lot. This is a natural way to increase blood flow. Now, there has been a reason. Let's talk about some of the propagandas used against salt, right? And its importance. So some 40 years ago, we noticed that some individuals were affected with sore throat, others with scalp incrustation, and others with eczema, right? Psoriasis and constipation. And there has been treatments that they have taken away salt from these people. They have removed excess amounts of salt, right? And they have learned that the body and the nerves naturally revert back to a natural state, right? And what's important is we must understand that most physicians know that this starts from irritation, right? Most diseases start from irritation, which develop local inflammation, right? And what is important is that we must understand is salt as a stimulant is going to excessively break down compounds, right? So we're going to go over a few individuals in a study who have decreased their salt intake, right? So we'll start off with Miss J was treated 22 years by several eminent physicians for stiffness of the neck and the joints. And by reducing salt, she recovered in 5 months. The body is a natural, reoccurring, and rehealing body, right? Your body will naturally reheal itself. This is why fasting is extremely, extremely important, right? Fasting can be the one ways to allow your body to reclaim itself, heal itself, and allow for more human growth hormone to increase. Human growth hormone has so much effects on the body. Now let's look at Miss B, age 36, mother of 3 children, suffered for 5 years with nymphomania, right? As a consultant, I advised less salt, and she recovered in a few months without medication. Miss K, age 25, a singer, lost the pitch of her voice, and by reducing the use of salt for 6 months, recovered its tone. Miss M, age 42, became a very deaf from excessive use of salt for 18 years. A dieter free of salt, supplemented by the application of mild current of electricity from the nape of the neck to the auditory aperture, or 2 hours at a seance for 15 days, restored her healing. Guys, the body is a creative, destructive, renewal, rebirth, eco lounge inside, right? So when we just said right there that this restored her hearing, let's really break down what happened with Miss M, right? The salt broke down her ability to hear at a larger sense, because the salt is actually what's breaking down a lot of stuff. Like I said, if we think of the meat concept, when you put salt on the meat is to make sure it is basically protected and it stays meat, because nothing else is going to arrive on it, because the salt is a natural protectant, a stimulant, we would say. So when we are seeing that Miss M, after reducing salt intake and created a mild current of electricity, the electricity is what opened up the pathways to learning to create hearing again, right? The less salt allowed for no breakdown within the nervous system, right? And then the learning that you will learn from the hippocampus, and then you having these electrical currents to understand and hear it again, it made her body adapt. And then within a few months, Miss M was able to hear again, right? It is important because this goes as well for even people that are lactose intolerant. The idea of lactose intolerant is because the excess amounts of milk, right? Now, if we want to build back tolerance for milk, right, you must drink it residually in small amounts so that the milk does not, or the cheese or whatever, is not become, because as time, your body becomes less and less tolerable, but you can build that tolerance back up. So this is the same concept of allowing your body to naturally adapt, right? So fasting is very, very important, right? Because allowing your body to regenerate and allowing your body to resurface is extremely important. So guys, minimizing salt is extremely important, guys. And eaten in excessive quantities, salt liberates too much chlorine gas with the food, disproportionates the alkalinity of the blood, making it irritable, and intensifies acidity of the urine to an irritant degree that induces itching from infancy to puberty. So let's get back to the itching part, right? This is common with people in modern Western culture, right? We see a lot of individuals with skin problems, with itchings, eczemas, hives, things of that nature, right? This comes from the diet. This all stems from the diet. Decreasing salt will help this enormously. But the diet, the FDA, and things of that nature want to push out what is going to make more money. It is not going to push out what is going to push out longevity for the human body. It needs to push out a system of consumerism, right? So it is essential to understand that salt is not the enemy, but it definitely can be abused on the human body, right? That is why we see so many of the fried foods, these chips, a lot of these things are high in sodium for a reason, right? And it is addictive also because these things are addictive. Salt is addictive and it is extremely harmful on the human body. The toll that it takes on the human body is immense, right? Especially taken in immense amounts, right? So the most serious injury in human race is the effect of salt in producing early impotence by overstimulating the normal reciprocal erythrism between the brain and the sexual organs. So guys, this is a very, very, this point right here means a lot. The most serious injury to human race is the effect of salt in producing early impotence by overstimulating the normal reciprocal erythrism between the brain and the sexual organs. What does that mean? So even from a young age, people are indoctrinated in giving their children high sodium foods, and these high sodium foods are affecting them their nervous system. They're affecting them cardiovascularly. They're affecting their capillaries at such a young age that they are not developing into what they potentially can be because of the immense amounts of salt. The salt is a factor that's potentially stopping a lot of circadian rhythms that you could potentially be doing, right? And in essence, salt is bad in an excessive amount. I'm also going to say this for the ladies. Salt has to be monitored even more for women because ladies in general, the uterus and the vagina wants to carry more bacteria because it is essential for the vagina to have this, right? So the more salt you consume as a woman, you will have more issues in that department because of the salt breaking down the crucial enzymes. See, as a woman, you are divine. You are not a piece of meat. You are a divine individual creating life, right? Therefore, this bacteria is needed, and the understanding of salt is extremely, extremely important because of this.